بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله. والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الخلق وأعز المرسلين حبيب إله العالمين أبي القاسم محمد. Dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. وعظم الله أجورنا وأجوركم باستشهاد سيدة نساء العالمين فاطمة الزهراء عليه السلام. اللهم يا رب فاطمة بحق فاطمة اشف صدر فاطمة بظهور الحجة. We offer our condolences to the Imam of our time, Imam Sahib al-Asr wa Zaman, as we commemorate the martyrdom of his holy grandmother, his blessed grandmother, Fatimah al-Zahra alayhi salam. On behalf of Imam Hussein Islamic Center, I'd like to welcome you all to tonight's program, the first night of 3 nights, inshallah. So tonight, tomorrow, and Saturday night, there will be a program. Tonight, inshallah, we'll begin with the recitation of the Holy Qur'an, followed by Ziyarat. Please welcome Hajj Hassan Dusti with a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يسبح لله ما في السماوات وما في الأرض الملك القدوس العزيز الحكيم. هو الذي بعث في الأميين رسولا منهم يتلو عليهم آياته ويزكيهم ويعلمهم الكتاب والحكمة وإن كانوا من قبل لفي ضلال مبين. وآخرين منهم لما يلحقوا بهم وهو العزيز الحكيم. ذلك فضل الله يؤتيه من يشاء والله ذو الفضل العظيم. مثل الذين حملوا التوراة ثم لم يحملوها كمثل الحمار يحمل أسفارا بئس مثل القوم الذين كذبوا بآيات الله والله لا يهدي القوم الظالمين. قل يا أيها الذين هادوا إن زعمتم أنكم أولياء لله من دون الناس فتمنوا الموت إن كنتم صادقين ولا يتمنونه أبدا بما قدمت أيديهم والله عليم بالظالمين. قل إن الموت الذي تفرون منه فإنه ملاقيكم ثم تردون إلى عالم الغيب والشهادة فينبئكم بما كنتم تعملون. يا أيها الذين آمنوا إذا نودي للصلاة من يوم الجمعة فاسعوا إلى ذكر الله وذروا البيع ذلكم خير لكم إن كنتم تعلمون فإذا قضيت الصلاة فانتشروا في الأرض وابتغوا من فضل الله واذكروا الله كثيرا لعلكم تفلحون وإذا رأوا تجارة أو لهوا انفضوا إليها وتركوك قائما قل ما عند الله خير من اللهو ومن التجارة والله خير الرازقين صدق الله العلي العظيم صلوات. زيارة آل ياسين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. سلام على آل ياسين. السلام عليك يا داعي الله ورباني آياته. السلام عليك يا باب الله وديان دينه. السلام عليك يا خليفة الله وناصر حقه. السلام عليك يا حجة الله ودليل إرادته. السلام عليك يا تالي كتاب الله وترجمانه. السلام عليك في آناء ليلك وأطراف نهارك. السلام عليك يا بقية الله في أرضه. السلام عليك يا ميثاق الله الذي أخذه ومكده. السلام عليك يا وعد الله الذي ضمنه. السلام عليك أيها العلم المنسوب والعلم المسبوب والغوث والرحمة الواسعة وعدا غير مكذوب. السلام عليك حين تقوم. السلام عليك حين تغوت. السلام عليك حين تقرأ وتبين. السلام عليك حين تصلي وتقنت. السلام عليك حين تركع وتسجد. السلام عليك حين تهلل وتكبر. السلام عليك حين تحمد وتستغفر. السلام عليك حين تصبح وتمسي. السلام عليك في الليل إذا يغشى والنهار إذا تجلى. السلام عليك أيها الإمام المعمول. السلام عليك أيها المقدم المأمول. السلام عليك بجوامع السلام. أشهدك يا مولاي أني أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأن محمدًا عبده ورسوله لا حبيب إلا هو وأهله. وأشهدك يا مولاي أن عليا أمير المؤمنين حجته، والحسن حجته، والحسين حجته، وعلي بن الحسين حجته، ومحمد بن علي حجته، وجعفر بن محمد حجته، وموسى بن جعفر حجته، وعلي بن موسى حجته، ومحمد بن علي حجته، وعلي بن محمد حجته، والحسن بن علي حجته. وأشهد أنك حجة الله، أنتم الأول والآخر، وأن رجعتكم حق لا ريب فيها. يوم لا ينفع نفسا إيمانها لم تكن آمنت من قبل أو كسبت في إيمانها خيرا، وأن الموت حق، وأن ناكرا ونكيرا حق، وأشهد أن النشر حق، والبعث حق، وأن الصراط حق، والمرصاد حق، والميزان حق، والحشر حق، والحساب حق، والجنة والنار حق، والبعد والبعيد بما حق. يا مولاي شقي من خالفكم وسعد من أطاعكم، فاشهد على ما أشهدتك عليه. وأنا ولي لك بريء من عدوك، فالحق ما رضيتموه، والباطل ما أسخطتموه، والمعروف ما أمرتم به، والمنكر ما نهيتم عنه. فنفسي مؤمنة بالله وحده لا شريك له، وبرسوله وبأمير المؤمنين، وبكم يا مولاي، أولكم وآخركم، ونصرتي مؤدة لكم، ومودتي خالصة لكم. آمين آمين. صلوات.
MashaAllah, thank you, brother, for that beautiful recitation. Please bless him with a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. I'd just like to make some quick announcements for tonight, inshallah, before we get to the lecture. Every Friday, inshallah, there will be Fatimiyyah lectures. So please see IHIC's website and their Facebook page for updates on the programs, inshallah. On Thursdays will be Tafsir al-Qur'an after Maghrib and Isha prayers and Dua Kumail. Please keep your phones on silent throughout the program and prioritize chairs for those in medical conditions. For any children above the age of 4, there are classes running upstairs. So if parents can accommodate them to make their way upstairs to benefit from that program, inshallah. Updates have been made in Imam Hussein Islamic Center. An aircon has been installed in the glass room upstairs, and I'd like to take the opportunity to thank the volunteers who helped with the installation and the cleaning. May you all be rewarded by Sayyidah Zahra alayhi salam on the Day of Judgment and reach her intercession. If anyone would like the opportunity to donate, towards some of the costs and be a part of that reward, and inshallah for future projects for the center, please see Brother Ahmad Rashid. Finally, there is a girl in our community who's on life support. She's only 14 years old. So we request, inshallah, tonight, by the right of Fatimiyyah Zahra alayhi salam and the Majlis that we have come to commemorate, we ask that you please keep her in your sincerest du'at and pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give her a speedy recovery. And our first act in this, I request you all to recite aloud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam said, Fatima is the joy and happiness of my heart. Her sons are the fruit of my heart. Her husband is the light of my eyes. And the imams from the progeny of her son are the trustees of my God and the rope that connects God and his creatures. Whoever holds onto them will be saved, and whoever goes against them has gone astray. Inshallah, with that, we will begin with the main lecture for this evening by Sayyid Abdullah Al-Nakeeb. Please recite 3 times بحق فاطمة وأبيها وبعلها وبنيها والسر المستودع فيها صلوا على محمد وآل محمد.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين الله لا سيما بقية الله روحي وأرواح العالمين لتراب مقدمه الفداء. أما بعد، يقول الله في محكم كتابه الكريم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وقضى ربك ألا تعبدوا إلا إياه وبالوالدين إحسانا إما يبلغن عندك الكبر أحدهما أو كلاهما فلا تقل لهما أف ولا تنهرهما وقل لهما قولا كريما. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala states within the Holy Qur'an in Surah Al-Isra, ayah number 23, and your Lord has decreed that you not worship except Him, and to your parents good treatment, whether one or both of them reach old age. Do not say to them as much as off, and do not repel them, but speak to them a noble word. Inshallah, we can start by blessing the Majlis of the remembrance of Fatimiyyah Zahra with a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Tonight, as we remember amongst the many nights that are going to come till the end of the year in the remembrance of this lady, which is the greatest lady ever to walk this earth. Amongst the many questions, we as followers of this great lady that call ourselves the Shia of Fatimiyyah Zahra, the followers of Fatimiyyah Zahra, and indeed the lovers of Fatimiyyah Zahra, I think amongst the first questions we need to ask ourselves when coming together and remembering this great lady is how best can we showcase this lady when someone approaches us, whether it's from the community that knows Fatimiyyah Zahra, whether it's from other communities that are Muslim but do not know the rank that we hold Fatimiyyah Zahra in. Or it may be a person that hears about this great lady for the first time, and they will come to you and ask you, what can you tell me as a follower, as a lover, and as a person that calls yourself a muhib of Fatima Zahra, what are we able to tell these people? What is the lens that we often show Fatima Zahra? Because many of us, especially the younger generation, will come forward with the many things we hear on the pulpits. Amongst them, we'll say that, Fatima Zahra was, the daughter of Rasulullah, first and foremost. Fatima was great because, she was married to the greatest man after Rasulullah. She was great because from her was Hassan and Hussein. And we bring this argument to the table. But that argument doesn't really hold firm if we were looking at it through the Quranic lens, does it? Why? Because we know many a story within the Qur'an, people that were the sons of prophets or married to prophets. But the Qur'an speaks of them in a very negative connotation. Take the example of the sons of Yaqub, the brothers of Yusuf. And they tried to kill a prophet and then lie to another that we've killed him. Many of them in the Holy Quran that were married towards prophets, Allah speaks of them in the Quran a very negative connotation. So when we bring this to the limelight, even though we understand that there are traditions that say that had it not been for Amir al-Mu'mineen and his level, there would not be anyone on this earth from Adam to the Khatam that will be worthy to marry Fatima Zahra. That showcases something. But it's not an element that you want to showcase Fatima. Yes, she was great because of her relationships in and around her father, mother, husband, sons, daughters. And then you'll find, no, some of us will come forward with other things that we've learned through the years of listening to the pulpits. Many of us will come forward where she was a woman that fought for the imamate. She was a woman that gave away her wedding dress on her wedding night. That's a whole lecture in itself. Some people will come forward and say, I know Fatima Zahra lived until 18 years of age, as an example. And these things come forward, but give me something of more of an element that I can take and apply to my life. What of the life of Fatima Zahra can you teach me as a person, as they state, about her life that I can take, admire, and apply within my life? Something that I can see in her everyday character that I do not see in someone else. Why should I have her as a role model over A, B, C, D? What makes her so great? Now you can come forward and look into the traditions. You can come forward and say traditions that we find much difficulty in explaining its essence, even amongst the heights of the scholars. As an example, there's a tradition which is very much taken and very strong in its chains that says, O Prophet, when Allah speaks to Rasulullah, says, Ya Muhammad lawlak, as we all know the tradition, lama khalaqtul aflak. Very interesting tradition. Had it not been for you, O Rasulullah, I would not have created the universe. Then it goes on to say, walawla Ali lama khalaqtuk. Had it not been for the succession, which is Ali, I would not have created you. Then it goes on to say, walawla Fatima. Had it not been for Fatima, I would not have created you, O Ali, or you, O Rasulullah. So therefore you see that, okay, so if I have this tradition saying that had it not been for Fatima, I would not have created either one of you, which means I have not created the universe, what is the rank of Fatima? You can come forward and say that Fatima is the link between prophethood and imamate, without a shadow of doubt. You can bring many traditions that come forward and say as that of our Imam Sahib al-Asri wa zaman. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. Stating that we are the hujjah of Allah on the creation. And Fatima is the hujjah upon us, being the imams. So now we see, okay, so Fatima has different ranks, different levels, different lenses, many of which we cannot explain in a 40-minute lecture. But let's bring Fatima down to particular elements within her life, particular acts within her life, in order for us to better understand her through different lenses. And through these 3 different nights, inshallah, that we are together, I want to analyze 3 different lenses of Fatima Zahra. The first lens, which I want to examine tonight is the lens of Fatima, the daughter. Tomorrow I want to analyze Fatima, the wife. And on Saturday we're going to analyze Fatima, the mother. Daughter, wife, and mother. And therefore when we explore these three different lenses of Fatima al-Zahra, we're able to break down to an everyday action. What can we do? What can we learn about the importance of these three different roles within the life of this great lady and how she went on to perform them? So tonight, as we are looking at the first lens, which is Fatima, the daughter of Rasulullah, we're going to ask questions, and by the conclusion we'll have a better understanding of the concept of the importance of being a son or a daughter towards your parents, by first asking the question, how highly does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speak about dutifulness towards parents within the Holy Qur'an? As in, if we examine where Allah places being dutiful towards your parents within the Holy Qur'an, it will give us a glimpse of how highly Allah has it within Islam. If we see it's put in a particular category, it may have a different element. But if He puts it in the hierarchy of elements that we need to learn in everyday life, then we see a different lens of the importance of such an issue. Number one. Number two, what is meant by uquq al-walidain? This terminology that is thrown around in the relationship between a son and a daughter and their parents, known as uquq al-walidain. What does it mean on the first level? What does aq mean, or aqqa mean within Arabic language, and how does it apply towards this particular concept? And indeed, what's the punishments associated with anyone that performs these acts? Number two. Number three, which is very interestingly, there are many terminologies within the Holy Qur'an that we come across. Amongst them is ta'a. Amongst them is ihsan. Amongst them is bir. What is the similarities between these words and what are the differences? And which one do we want to take and apply within our lives using Fatima as a lens? Number four, and very importantly, the main gist that we need to take home from tonight, how can someone be dutiful towards their parents? And are they able to be dutiful during their life, or are they able to also be dutiful after they die? And what are some examples that we can apply from tonight? And fifthly, we want to look at this word from Rasulullah stating Fatima ummu abiha. Rasulullah would say towards Fatima that Fatima is the mother of her father. What is meant when Rasulullah, or what are the different lenses that we can look at the meaning of when Rasulullah says such a statement that Fatima is the mother of her father? And inshallah, by the end of tonight, we would have had a holistic understanding of the importance of such a topic and where Fatima al-Zahra is used within each and every one of these in order for her to be a role model for us. So inshallah, to start this important topic and delve into this analysis, please assist me in blessing the Majlis by reciting 3 salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli. Within the Holy Qur'an, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He comes with the message, the first aspect of the message, if you want to be a Muslim, is to understand this concept of Tawheed. The prophets from Adam to the Khatam came forward with this particular message of Tawheed. Do not enjoin partners to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now when we look within the Holy Qur'an, we begin to analyze the ayat that come forward that speak about the importance of the oneness of Allah, understanding the topic which is Tawheed. Do not enjoin partners. And subhanallah, the majority of the verses within the Holy Qur'an that speak about the oneness of Allah and not enjoining partners, straight away, the next line would remind us to be dutiful towards our parents. Now, many of us would read and just go on. But many of us need to stop and think, why does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when giving us this Holy Qur'an and speaking to us through it, after He says, do not enjoin partners to me and be dutiful towards your parents? Many times through the Holy Qur'an, and the majority of times He speaks about His oneness, or He speaks about His oneness, He couples it with the next line saying, and be dutiful towards your parents. That in itself should showcase to us the importance of this whole concept of being dutiful towards your parents. Like the verse that we stated earlier, that we began the lecture with, we stated very clearly, وَقَضَى رَبُّكَ, and Allah ordained, and لَا تَعْبُدُ إِلَّا إِيَّاهِ, He has ordained that do not worship except Him. And the next line, what was it? وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا, be dutiful towards your parents. And it becomes very interesting because there's many different reasonings through the scholars of why that is. Amongst them, just to bring one forward before the end of tonight, they say that they are the cause that Allah used to bring you to this world. You see, within the Holy Qur'an, throughout it, Allah speaks to the child to be dutiful towards his parents. But you won't find much in the sense of Allah telling the parents to be good towards the children. Why? Because Allah already instilled it within them. That's why we go to Risat al-Huquq, the treatise of rights for Imam Zayn al-Abidin. When he speaks about the treaty of rights, the right of the mother, the right of the father, he alludes to this. When he talks about the father, he says, know that your father, had it not been for him, you would cease to exist. Going back to the fact that had it not been for him, you wouldn't even be here. That in itself, the Risat al-Huquq says, you will never be able to thank him for on the first level. The mother, Allah has already instilled within her the capabilities and the love and the mercy to take care of you. That's why Imam Zayn al-Abidin in the right of the mother says, make sure that you know, حَمَلَتْكَ حَيْثُ لَا يَحْمِلُ أَحَدًا أَحَدًا. She carried you in a place where no one carries anyone. She gave you from the fruit of her heart that which no one gives anyone. Allah's already instilled it within them. That's why Allah made it very clear in a repetitive manner to remind us to be dutiful to them. You know what's interesting in the Western culture? Many of us will overlook this aspect. You know, in the Western culture, it doesn't matter where you are, whether it be in Australia, Europe, America, each country has a specific day set out, which they call Mother's Day, and a specific day they call Father's Day. Why? Have you ever thought like, yeah, wow, you know, someone's thinking about the mother and father. One day a year? How much importance in Western culture is there if you really look throughout novels and movies, TV shows? How much respect does a child show their parents? They say, no, you know, they're out, they're about, they don't respect their parents, but one day we're going to remember, you know, that they were there for us, so we'll make it a mother. In Islam, every single day should be and is Mother's Day, and each and every day is Father's Day, because Allah says there's never a time where you should not respect and be dutiful towards your parents. And that's a very interesting thing. When Imam Sadiq is asked, what is the most valuable actions that a person can do within his life? He says there's three. The first is that you pray on time. The second is that you ensure that you strive in the path of Allah. Now this has different elements because the jihad and the struggle here has different avenues that we can tackle, but the strive in the path of Allah. And the third is to be bar biwaliday. Be dutiful towards your parents. Three most valuable things a person can apply within their life. That's why when Musa asks Allah, look at this question. He says, oh Allah, can you show me my neighbor in heaven? Musa is like, I know I'm going to heaven. So show me my neighbor. He says, no problem. Go towards the market in this particular location. You'll see a man. This is his name. Go and see your neighbor in heaven. So Musa goes to the market, finds the shop. He sees it's a butcher. All the butchers here, I think, are getting excited. And then you go, Musa's looking at him, he's like, he doesn't look very special. Why is it that this is my neighbor in heaven? So Musa goes up to him. The man doesn't know it's Musa. So he says, oh man, I would like to accompany you or come towards your house for a few days. Give me 3 days to accompany you, be around you if you permit me. He says, of course. Oh man, you can enter my house as long as you like. So he brings Kalimullah, Musa, towards his house, gets him a room, and Musa's observing. There's nothing special about him. Musa's up, he's praying all night. Sure, this guy's asleep. Gone. Wakes up in the morning, he's still asleep, he's waking up. He goes into a room, 20 minutes, half an hour, and then same thing, second day, third day. Musa's thinking, how on earth did this guy become my neighbor? How? So he says, oh man, there's only one thing I don't know about what you're doing. You know, like you don't pray that much, you don't read that much, you know, you don't supplicate that much. At work, back to home, I see you go into a room for like half an hour and then you come out. What's going on? He says, oh man, that room, look how simple. He says, that room has my disabled mother. He says, I come, I make sure that she cannot do things for herself. I bathe her, I clean her, I dress her. He says, I chew the food with my own mouth and I feed it to her. Give her the medicine, see that she doesn't need anything, and I leave my house. Musa says to him, he says, oh man, what does she say when you feed her the food? So he says, as every time I feed her the food, she looks at me and says, oh, may Allah grant you a high level that you are the neighbor of the Prophet of Allah. Dua of a mother. And that's why Musa would look at him and says, oh man, I am Musa. I am your prophet, and by Allah, you are my neighbor in the hereafter because of what you have done of duty towards your mother. Now, we may look at this as something small. You know, we can, what's so hard about? No. You know very well from the stories we have within the communities how much people leave the duties that they have towards their parents, how they speak towards their parents, how they treat, and even speak not just in front of them, behind their backs. So this, on the first level, we understand the duty. And that Allah couples His tawheed with the obedience towards your parents, hierarchy. And now we know into a level. But now, on the flip side, what does aq mean? Because we know a person that is aq li waliday, there are punishments for it. Now, aq li waliday, what does it mean? Aq comes from the root word aqqa. Aqqa literally means to sever or to cut. And that's why many of us that have had children, on the 7th day, we sacrifice something and give it out as food, and we call it aqiqah. Many of the different, especially Arabic countries, know this formality. Aqiqah literally means to sever something in order for the protection of your child and the prosperity. So you sacrifice or sever or cut in that aspect. When it comes towards your parents, to do this act of aqil walidain or uquq al-walidain means, in a sense, to cut that relation of love and dutifulness towards them. When you go towards Al-Mawrud, which is the Arabic English dictionary, literally the words that are used to translate uquq al-walidain, it says it's the opposite of bir. It's the first thing it says. To do this thing which is called aq is the opposite of bir. Bir is that which we want to achieve, dutifulness. It says the aq means the opposite of bir. It says undutiful, impious, disobedient, amongst the many words that are used to describe a person. Now, someone comes and says, what's the different things that I can do that I will be in this particular category? Because there are many punishments. Anyone that severs relations in one way or another already has punishments. Amongst the punishment is a decrease in your lifespan, a decrease in your sustenance, a decrease in your wealth, a removal of the barakah within your life. So imagine sometimes we're praying for something that we want. And we think to ourselves, I'm doing everything. I'm praying, I'm fasting. I've done a few nithers. Still nothing. Allah, has He? No. Look at the relationship between you and your parents. See, are you of those that have destroyed or began to sever that relationship between you and your parents, whether they are alive or have passed and returned back towards Allah? Have I or have I not been act towards my parents? Rasulullah says, the height and the worst level that a person can reach in severing relationships is that of the parents. Aqil walidain. And that's why Imam Sadiq has a very interesting tradition. He says, in the hereafter, one of the veils of Jannah, when it's removed, the scent of Jannah comes out. And look at the tradition, if you can imagine this. He says, the smell can be smelt from 500 years away. From 500 years. And people will be able to smell it on the mahshar, except those that are aq towards their parents, undutiful towards their parents. That's why, subhanAllah, there's a particular tradition why Amir al-Mu'mineen says in the Holy Qur'an, the verse that we stated, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, فَلَا تَقُلْ لَهُمَا أُفٍّ. Sometimes we say to ourselves, when we mention this word, uff, we say, oh wait, that is bad, I can't do that, but I can speak ill about them and talk behind their back and do things that they told me not to do, but I can't say uff. You see where the balance is? Don't say uff, but I can do all that. No. Amir al-Mu'mineen says, Allah mentions uff because had there been anything smaller than uff, this extraction of air in anger or frustration, had there been anything smaller than that, Allah would have mentioned it within the Holy Qur'an. Then it stands to reason anything above that is also haram, isn't it? So this is the smallest act, blowing air in an angry manner, frustrated manner. Don't even do that. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says beautifully in the Qur'an, if they reach an old age, He's saying that, have more patience, because sometimes as they grow older, you might find it more difficult of how they may be able to treat you, or how much more you have to do for them. Even that uff, because it's such a small thing, it says, had they been small, Allah would have mentioned it. So imagine the relationship you need to have with your parents. Imam al-Baqir says, I saw my father, Imam al-Sajjad, one day had a companion, he saw him in the market. He says, that companion, as he's walking with his father in the market, I saw him leaning on him. So some of us, we have our hands on our fathers, or we're leaning, or we joke around. He says he was in the market. He says he was leaning, and his comfort was achieved by leaning on his father. He says, I saw my father, Imam al-Sajjad, not speak to his companion until he returned back towards Allah. So we look at that as something normal. He says, no, Imam al-Sajjad looks at that to be something of disrespect towards the parents. And we think to ourselves, what on earth have we done to our parents? How have we treated them? What have we said? And so, subhanAllah, when we look at this, we understand now to be aq towards your parents is a no-go. But then how do we become bar towards our parents? And that becomes quite interesting, because there are many verses within the Holy Qur'an that have these terminologies. Ta'a, bir, ihsan. What's the difference between them? Because it gets interesting now. When you go to ta'a within the Arabic literature, ta'a literally means obedience. Someone says, do something, you do it. He says, don't do it, you don't do it. Bir and ihsan are synonymous. Can be used one way or another, but has very minor differences. Very minor differences, but overall, they mean the same thing. Ihsan and bir, to be dutiful towards your parents. Now, where it gets interesting is ta'a, to be obedient. If they say do something, you do. Say do not do it, don't do it. Is only when they're alive. I mean, you can't really be obedient to them until they tell you do something after I die, but there is a certain level. you can't do or don't do after they return back towards Allah. But birr and ihsan, interestingly enough, can carry through. Doesn't matter if they're alive. Doesn't matter if they've returned back towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You can still be bar towards your parents. You can show ihsan towards your parents. And that's why when it comes to ta'ah, we know that you don't necessarily have to listen or obey your parents. And the Qur'an makes it very clear. In Surah Luqman, very clearly says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, وَإِن جَاهَدَاكَ عَلَىٰ أَن تُشْرِكْ بِي مَا لَيْسَ لَكَ بِهِ عِلْمٌ فَلَا, who knows the verse? فَلَا تُطِعْهُمَا. If they endeavor to make you associate with me of that which you have no knowledge, do not obey them. Who? Your parents. So ta'ah is not always necessitated, is it? If they tell you to go against Allah, and subhanAllah, the verse what it says, in jahadak. Jahadak comes from the root word jihad. Means they didn't just tell you, do shirk. They are striving to make you go against the path of Allah. In jahadak, ala an tashrik. They, day in, day out, try their utmost to get you away from the path of Allah, disobey Allah, and join partners to Allah. Do not obey them. Do not obey them. But still be bar towards them. Because bir doesn't mean, oh, my parents are Muslim, not Muslim, good, bad. Doesn't matter if they're Muslim, non-Muslim. They disbelieve in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They are good to you. They are bad to you. They are anything. You still have a duty towards them. You still have a duty. And it's ordained within the Holy Qur'an that you have to be dutiful towards them. And that's why, subhanAllah, when it comes towards bir, Rasulullah says a beautiful statement. He says, one look of mercy that you have towards your parents. Sometimes we look at them, we smile. We show them love. Just a look, let alone speaking, doing, acting, walking towards something. Just a look of kindness towards your parents. Rasulullah says, Allah will write for you the rewards of a Hajj Mabrur, an accepted Hajj. So someone's in the crowd and says, Ya Rasulullah, what if I look at my parents 100 times a day? So, sometimes people ask funny questions around Rasulullah and Imam Ali's time. What if I look 100 times? Rasulullah replies by saying, even if you look 100,000 times, Allah is merciful. This is an important issue. And that's why Imam Amir al-Mu'minin says a beautiful statement in this regard. And this notion is, Birru aba'akum yaburrukum abna'akum. Meaning, be dutiful towards your parents, and the law of Allah dictates your children will be dutiful towards you. Abdullah Al-Ka'bi narrates. Now many of us would know the name Abdullah Al-Ka'bi is the main person that recites the musibah or the maqtal of Baba Abdullah. If you've ever gone towards Karbala walking, you'll hear that old cassette tape vibe in the background. Abdullah Al-Ka'bi is most likely that person that's on it. He says, I came to a majlis one day once I was invited to speak. He says, outside, I saw a young man sitting on a chair, welcoming people, getting up, welcoming people. People are, looking at him to be the person that is in front of the mawqib, welcoming people in. So, I saw this, and inside the hall, I saw an elderly man, barely able to struggle to pick up that rubbish which is on the floor, give out the tea, walk around. So I found this, to my knowledge, very weird to see an elderly man in the middle and a young man in the front of the mawqib. So I'm just like, so he says, I asked the nearest of them. He says, what's going on? Why is there a young man? Usually we'd see an elderly gentleman in the community that knows everyone, welcoming people in, bringing them, sitting them down, and the youngsters running around giving tea, picking up rubbish, using their energy. And they said, that elderly man is the father of that man's in front. So Abdullah became quite agitated. He's like, how can you allow this man to be relaxed, comfort, and this elderly man to... So the elderly man heard Abdullah, came to him. He says, Sheikh, let it be. Why? He says, when I was his age, I did the exact same thing to my father. Exact same thing. So this is Allah's way to teach me of what I have done. You reap what you sow. Karma, as we call it now, what you do will be done to you. And vice versa. You are good towards your parents, then your children will be good to you. Now, there's a story of a man that is spoken that he grew at an old age, built that which is a beautiful house, and built for himself a small kind of hut outside the house to spend his last days, and gave the main house towards his son, his wife, their children. So years go past, the son begins to live in this lavish house, and the father continues to be in that small outside kind of shed area that he built for himself to spend his last days praying. So, as you do, Shaitan begins to do his main task of waswas, and he says to them, this, you're paying for him, he does nothing around the house, you're doing out of your own goodwill, and then the wife comes around and the children, they're like, what's he doesn't do anything, you do everything for him, get rid of him. Shaitan comes to him and says, why don't you one day, your father trusts you, build him like a box, one day go and throw your father, and then he'll die and then you'll be finished. So this man gets to work, builds a box, comes to his father one day. He says, oh, Father, let me take you out. I want to take you out, smell some fresh air, go on a little bit of a, let's say, drive. Let me carry you, because you could barely walk at that time. Let me carry you in this box that I've built for you and put you on, that vehicle that I went with to take you towards different areas. So he puts him in the box, into the vehicle, and he drives near the cliff. And so the father knows exactly what his son's about to do, and so he begins to smile. He says, oh, my son, he says, I know what you're about to do. He says, but I want one thing from you, and one thing only. So the son's like, what is it? He says, I would like if you don't put me in the box and then throw me off the cliff. Why would you waste the box? Because your sons will be needing it one day. Throw me off the cliff, don't worry. But make sure you keep this box safe, because your sons will do that same thing that you are about to do to me. It kind of woke him up. So the idea there is, what you do to your parents, your children will do to you, which is of the utmost importance and something that we need to keep in the back of our minds moving forward. Now, can we, before we get towards the next point, ever repay our parents? Which is quite an interesting topic. Because someone comes towards Imam Asad and says, sometimes we do so much that we think that we've returned the favor. The right 22 and right 23 in Rasat al-Huquq, at the end of both, right of the father and mother, Imam Sajjad says you will never be able to repay your parents. Person comes to Imam Asad and says, oh, Imam, in Hajj, at that time they didn't really have wheelchairs as we do now. He says, in Hajj, my mother couldn't. He says, so I carried her through the tawaf, through Safa and Marwa, back and forth, did all the acts with her, took her to the mountains, did. Have I, now that I've done all these acts of pain, repaid her? Look at how the Imam replies in order for us to understand. He says, everything that you just did and everything that you will do will not repay one, contraction, we say, pain of labor that she went through for you. Anything. That one, few minutes sometimes it lasts, that contraction in labor, you would not be able to repay that one for your mother. She carried you for 9 months. I have a few extra keys in my pockets, and I'm going crazy. I have to throw it somewhere. She carried you for 9 months, thinking, how much is my child going to grow and be prosperous within this world? So what can we do when they're alive and when they pass? Amongst the traditions that come forward, saying what can we do for our parents when they're alive suggests that amongst them is always walk behind your father. Sometimes when we're walking towards an event anywhere, we're in France and our parents are trying to find us, going through those shops or streets or even the Husayniyat, where's my son gone? It says that amongst the first things to do is walk behind your father out of humility and respect towards them. Number one. Number two, when your father enters a gathering, the house, a room, an environment that you're in, make sure that you stand for your father in respect of his position. Number three, your voice. Let it not be elevated higher than that of your father. Sometimes when you're speaking, maybe in any manner, whether it's debating, speaking, talking, or arguing, let not your voice elevate above that of your father's. And that can also mean in another context, do not overpower your father with an opinion. Interestingly enough, when we read the biographies of our imams, have you ever crossed any tradition that says that an imam, let's say, Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib and Imam Hassan was there. Did you ever see that Imam Hassan speaks before Imam Ali? Or when Rasulullah and Imam Ali is there, that Imam Ali speaks before Rasulullah? Have you ever seen that the youngster speaks out, even to reply to a question, lest he's given permission by the elder? The traditions we say is like, ask my son. Oh, my son, I give you permission to reply to him. Look at the things that we need to learn from our Ahlul Bayt. How we need to use them as role models. And finally, amongst the traditions is never act in a way that will tarnish the reputation of your parents. Sometimes we think to ourselves, until my mother or father are not here, then I can go towards this place. If I go to this place without my parents knowing, then it's all good. If I go with these friends that they told me not to, it's fine. If you do an act, associate with people, be in places that in any way, shape, or form will tarnish the reputation or the image of your parents, Ahlul Bayt says, stay away from it. When they're alive or when they pass. So when they pass, interestingly enough, a person, and this is something we need to remember tonight, a person can be bar during the life of their parents, but become an aaq after they die. He can be dutiful when they're alive. As soon as they die, he forgets them. Becomes an aaq. And on the flip side, the whole life he was an aaq towards his parents. When they pass away, all of a sudden he becomes bar towards his parents. We have the extremes, but we need to be bar throughout our life. Have we ever thought to ourselves, if our parents, if they've passed away, amongst the things that we can do we ever recite salawats and gift it towards them? Do we read Qur'an and gift it towards them? Do we make a well and put it in their name so they receive constantly a barakah? Do we assist in building a mosque? Do we have any aspects of sadaqah that's continuous for them? Do we ever look within Mafatih al-Jinan, go towards the section that says this is the prayer of birr al-walidain, also known as al-walad li-walidih? Do we read that and learn how to pray it? These are many things that we can do in their lifetime and afterwards. And that's why when we come to the final point tonight, Fatima is given the rank which is known as Ummu Abiha. What does Ummu Abiha mean? The mother of her father. Now, if you look at that point, how can Fatima be the mother of her father? So obviously there needs to be particular lenses we need to look at this particular tradition. Amongst them that come forward, suggests the love, the compassion that Fatima showed to her father was that level that a mother shows. You know that it says that Allah's mercy, the closest thing you can think of a mother's mercy is Allah's mercy. When we try to showcase to the people, how is Allah's mercy? We say, think of how a mother is towards a child. A mother towards her son remains hungry and thirsty as long as her son has eaten and drank. Will be happy to be in the sun while her children's in the shade. Will be happy to be without clothes until her children are clothed. And that's why when we look at Rasulullah's lifetime, Rasulullah says, no prophet ever before me was hurt as much as I was hurt. ما أوذي نبي بمثل ما أوذيت. No prophet. So when Rasulullah was harmed, who was there to help him with his pain? Who was there to deal with his wounds? Fatima al-Zahra. Look at that level on the first lens. The second lens that they look at when Rasulullah says Ummu Abiha, saying when we look at within the Holy Qur'an, it means the source of blessings. Al-Qura within the Holy Qur'an, when it's mentioned within the Holy Qur'an, means the mother of all cities, the one in which the blessings come from. So when Rasulullah says about Fatima Ummu Abiha, that the blessing and the extension of the blessings, which is Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad, stems from Fatima al-Zahra's lineage. From her, Rasulullah's nur was able to be spread through the Ahl al-Bayt. And finally, and we end with this, amongst the things that we know about Abiha is how Rasulullah treated Fatima al-Zahra. Amongst the traditions that say when a person leaves to go on a trip, to leave the city, to leave the house, the last person that they want to see is their mother. The last person Rasulullah would see before he left towards the Ghazawat or any of his missions would be the house of Fatima. The last hands he would kiss would be the hands of Fatima. The last forehead he would embrace would be the forehead of Fatima al-Zahra. The first person he would want, you know when you're away for weeks, months, years, the first person is always the most that you crave to see. They would say Rasulullah would crave amongst his return. The first person he would want to see and arrive at is the house and the door of Fatima al-Zahra. Imagine in the time of Jahiliyyah, where you had ignorant people burying their daughters alive, all of a sudden see a prophet, that when a lady would enter, known as Fatima al-Zahra, the prophet himself would stand for her. Where have you seen this? Such was the relationship between Rasulullah and Fatima al-Zahra. And that's why as we go towards the Masibah, amongst the lenses we need to look at this relationship between Fatima al-Zahra and Rasulullah is to showcase to us how Fatima al-Zahra mourned for Rasulullah. You know, she mourned, and she had Hassan, Hussein, Zainab, Kulthum at home. But they would say that when Rasulullah passed, Fatima al-Zahra would be in severe mourning. They would say that Fatima, day and night, she would cry. He would come and remind people, this is the door of the house that Allah has elevated. I want you to imagine now Fatima al-Zahra in such a state that she has been mourning day and night. Imagine how weak and frail her body was. I want you to imagine Fatima at this very level. Whilst mourning, her rights have been taken from her. That she's running around not just towards crying upon the grave of Rasulullah, but running in and out of the courtroom, telling the people that you have stolen that which is mine, telling the people this is my right, why have you taken it from us? And alongside all of this mourning and troublesome nature, Fatima, remember very well that she was pregnant. Fatima at that level, whilst this is all happening, she was pregnant with Al-Muhsin. I want you to imagine how much they oppress Fatima al-Zahra at that notion, so much so that people around forced the first to give her a covenant, saying that this is fadak. Amongst the traditions that tell us on the way back towards the house one of the days, that the second Khalifa sees Fatima al-Zahra returning back towards the house with a piece of parchment in her hands. When he sees Fatima al-Zahra, he would say, "Oh Fatima, what is that you have in your hand?" She would say, "Oh man, this is my right that is returned back towards me by the first." You'll find the second Khalifa would snatch that particular covenant that was given towards Fatima. The traditions would say that this la'in would slap the cheek of Fatima so hard that Fatima al-Zahra would fall towards the ground. Only days after, weeks after, you will find that these same people have come towards the door of Rasulullah once, twice, 3 times. On the 3rd occasion, their traditions would say Fatima would see the men approaching her house. She goes towards the door, she would close the door upon them, not giving them permission to enter. They would say towards the second Khalifa, "Oh man, Ali is not behind the door." He would say to them, "Then who is behind the door?" "We are here to come towards Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali and take him forcibly, to take the bay'ah from him." They would say, "Ali is not behind the door." Then he asks, "Who is behind the door?" They would say that behind the door is Fatima al-Zahra. The la'in would reply with these lines saying, "So what? When we have a mission, doesn't matter if Rasulullah is behind the door, doesn't matter if Fatima al-Zahra is behind the door. We are here on a mission." They would say, "If you do not bring Ali, we will bring down the door." They begin to set the light or set the fire towards the door of Rasulullah, the door of Fatima al-Zahra. As they do so, they began to push the door of Fatima. While Fatima, in her frail state, remember, while she is mourning, running around for her rights, while she is pregnant, at that very moment, she is trying to fight off men trying to enter the house. The traditions would say in a will that he would write towards Muawiyah. He states, "At that very moment when we are pushing the door on Fatima, I began to see the hand of Fatima al-Zahra." He says, "I grabbed a whip from Qunfud and I began to whip the wrist of Fatima al-Zahra." He would say, Imam al-Sadiq would say that from the whipping, therefore Fatima al-Zahra had a bruise so much that it looked like a bracelet upon the hand of Fatima. They continued to push the door on Fatima al-Zahra, not being able to stop them. They would say that with their full force, they would push the door on Fatima. Fatima would become stuck between the door and the wall. The man would enter. He says, "As I pushed and kicked the door, I knew very well as we entered that Fatima is now between the door and between the wall." He says, "I did not fear, and with my force and my power, I began to push harder on the ribs of Fatima al-Zahra until," he says, "I heard a cracking noise behind the wall." As he does this, Fatima falls towards the ground. He would say the second would see Fatima. As he would see the face of Fatima on the floor, the traditions would say he would begin to slap the face of Fatima al-Zahra with such force that her earrings would break and fall towards the floor. Traditions would say he would continue kicking Fatima al-Zahra until she would miscarry miscarry the Muhsin. He would miscarry Muhsin from Fatima at that very moment. He would hear the scream and the agony of Fatima to Zahra when she would cry out, Abata ya Rasulallah, oh my father, is this what they do towards your daughter? She would look around, she would say, oh Fidda, come towards me, come and assist me. Hearing this from inside, Amir al-Mu'mineen rushes out, hearing the voice of Fatima to Zahra. He grabs the second, pushes him out, but before he leaves, he sees Fatima to Zahra on the ground, takes a cloak, covers the body of Fatima, runs outside, places that man upon the ground, comes towards him. They would say, we thought Ali at that moment would strike the final blow and kill that man, but we heard Ali bring his head towards him, saying towards him, oh man, had it not been for your knowledge of the will that Rasulullah has handcuffed me with, you would not dare come towards my house. All of a sudden, oh mu'mineen, I want you to imagine your Imam being taken in ropes towards the masjid of Rasulullah. Fatima all of a sudden on the ground, she looks around, she asks, Fidda, where is Ali? I have not seen Amir al-Mu'mineen. Where is he? Fidda says they have taken Amir al-Mu'mineen in ropes to take from him the allegiance by force. She would say, Fidda, help me up. I want to go towards Ali. All of a sudden she comes outside. She sees Ali being taken away. She comes towards them saying the famous lines, leave my Imam or I will pray to Allah that He brings down the punishment upon you. Ali hears Fatima al-Zahra saying this. He sees Salman. He says, Salman, go towards Fatima at this moment. Tell her that your father came as a mercy to these people. Do not be the cause of their destruction of Fatima. Salman carries the message. What does Fatima say towards Salman at this moment when he says, oh, daughter of Rasulullah, your Imam told you do not pray against them, for surely Allah will rain down punishment if you pray. It's as if Fatima replies to him saying, oh, Uncle Salman, Amya Salman, غصبوا حقي فصبرت. Oh, my Uncle Salman, they have taken by force all the rights that I had, but I remained patient. She would say, Amya Salman, حرقوا باب داري فصبرت. She would say, Uncle, oh Salman, they have burnt the door of Rasulullah. They have burnt my door, oh Salman, but I was patient, Salman. Ya Am, لقد كسروا ضلعي فصبرت. They have broken my rib, but I remained patient. Amya Salman, لقد أسقطوا جنيني. My Uncle Salman, they have caused me to miscarry my child and killed my Muhsin, but I was patient. Amya Salman, but they have taken my Imam. By Allah, I cannot remain to be patient. Amya Salman.
سيدتي يا زهراء، سيدتي يا زهراء. Brothers, please stand for Latam. Make a circle, inshallah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you. سيدتي يا زهراء، سيدتي يا زهراء، سيدتي يا زهراء، سيدتي يا زهراء. Oh, the mother of her father, you are the best of the mothers. Oh, the guide for 13 lands. sentence. You're the heaven of our masters, the flag held by every bearer. It's from your hands they are nurtured, from the greatness of your prayer. The world has Abbas and Akbar, mother of Mother Zahra, master of Master Zahra, mother of Mother Zahra, Sayyidati Ya Zahra. Your scent was from heaven's flowers, it's your steps that flourish gardens, growing with every servant, the oneness of Allah's power. Your strength came from heaven's mountains. You taught us faith can't be broken. We will never leave our master, just like you never left Haydar, sent of heavens, Ya Zahra, power of mountain Zahra, Sayyidati Ya Zahra, Sayyidati. Your pleasing is Allah's pleasure. You change destinies with prayers. From your hand flows heaven's rivers, and God's mercy is in Kawthar. How can one forget your station? For you could hear revelation. Your level cannot be questioned. When angels seek your permission, fountains of Kawthar Zahra, teachers of angels Zahra, Sayyidati Ya Zahra, Sayyidati. Upon God's throne your name's written, yet your words they did not listen. For you the door will bear witness, the house of Zahra's innocence. How can our eyes not weep oceans when they burn the doors of heaven? Standing behind was our mother, as broken nails dug deeper. The heart of Haydar Zahra, the cries of heaven Zahra, Sayyidati Ya Zahra, Sayyidati Ya Zahra, Sayyidati Ya Zahra, Sayyidati. شوقا لكل متيم وفى العقيدة بالدم، شوقا لنخلة ميثم، شوقا لسحب محرم، لدمع محرم، وأقسم إني أسير محرم، عمري أسير يوما كان به وحم، قلبي أسير قلب الزهراء على الصعد، كفي أسيرة التي جروها بالحديد، نحري أسير حد السيف مع الوريد، نحري أسير حد السيف مع الوريد، إرث أجدادي دين أولادي، كربلاء معنى بقائي واستشهادي، ذكرها جمرة ألهبت ثورة، أبدية لأجل الدين والعترة، أبدية لأجل الدين والعترة. يا حسين مولاي يا حسين مولاي يا حسين مولا حسين مولا حسين مولاي يا حسين مولاي يا حسين مولا حسين مولا حسين مولاي يا حسين مولاي يا حسين مولا حسين مولا حسين إرثون عليه تربيت أحيي عزاء أهل البيت أنعى وأندب مولاه كنت بكربلاء يا ليت بنفسي لبيت بأهلي لبيت بولدي لبيت أقسمت بفضائل كل هو الله أحد لبيك يا حسين بالأهل والوحد مولاي ليته الشمر على صدر سعد ثم تراني أمي رأسا بلا جسد ثم تراني أمي رأسا بلا جسد عندنا الإرث شمر لو يجثو فوق صدري يبقى ذكري يا حسين مولاي عندنا العادة يعرف القادة بالثغور بالنحور يا حسين مولاي بالثغور بالنحور يا حسين مولاي يا حسين مولاي يا حسين مولاي يا حسين مولا حسين مولا حسين مولاي يا حسين مولاي يا حسين مولا حسين إرثون لمقامك أسري ليس مجرد قبري لو ما نطقت بسري صارك بحالي تدري وتجبر كسري وتقبل عذري وتصلح أمري إرثي من الحمر والخزاع والجمل إن العزاء فيكم يحيي أمة بها يا سيد الشهادة يا مورد الحياة كيف تكون ميتا والشهيد ليس ميت كيف تكون ميتا والشهيد سميت سيد الحب كاشف الكرب يا أسير الكربات يا حسين مولاي الفعل والفكرة قلب والعبرة يا قتيل العبرات يا حسين مولاي يا قتيل العبرات يا حسين يا حسين مولاي يا حسين مولاي يا حسين مولا حسين مولا حسين مولاي يا حسين مولاي يا حسين مولا حسين مولا حسين مولاي يا حسين مولا حسين مولا حسين مولاي Please face the Qibla for dua, inshallah. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. إلى أرواح المؤمنين والمؤمنات، رحم الله من قرأ سورة المباركة الفاتحة تسبقها بالصلاة على محمد وآل محمد.